All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, I do see people are waiting for the stream, and there's plenty of chatting going on. Dictator Dave, no shit. First time I've seen an upcoming live stream in a long time from Rumble. Good afternoon to you from Delaware, Tarl. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you as well. Although here it's about noon. Lemon Curd Zero, good morning. Sigil Stone 17, no longer first, good morning. And Mrs. Tag, it's a foggy, rainy morning, good for clanking. I wish it was foggy and rainy here. It's a little bit hot again, although yesterday we did get about 3 hours of solid rain, so I was happy about that. Doesn't look like a desert anymore outside. The garden's been green, but like if you go out onto the Autoveg, things looked like the Sahara Desert actually there for a while. They're greening up a little bit now. Let's make sure that the live stream is actually fully working. Yes, indeed. Indeed it is. Lots and lots of chatting going on. Tonight's dinner, I'm going to be frying some fish, kabeljau, which is, I think, codfish or something like that. And you bread it and fry it, and it's all good. With Brussels sprouts, of course. Liz is making her rice. And we've got a lot to talk about today. We're not going to be talking about OceanGate because they've gotten to the bottom of that. It turns out for some days they knew likely there had been a catastrophic implosion of the craft. So it just basically it smushed together under high pressure, and everyone on board thankfully died instantly. So they probably didn't feel any pain. They probably didn't even feel it coming because the rate at which the craft impacted them is greater than the nerve conduction velocity. So thankfully, the people on board, while dead, they did not die painfully, or at least that's what they're presuming is likely the case. We'll be talking about Ron Desantis and his statement with regards to student loans. He has gone full leftoid on this particular issue. So it's rather unfortunate, but it's also telling and obviously expected. Now I've got two cat. Dwarf Fortress players beware. Everyone's going to die. She's not very happy about the fact that her sister's up here. Here, you can come over here, kitty. Come on. Just ignore your sister. I know she's mean to you sometimes. Okay, look at what I've got to deal with here. And they both expect to be petted, so how the fuck am I supposed to use the news tabs? I'll find a way. I need to grow a third or fourth arm. I need to be like Shiva or something. Next news story also will be an opinion piece, actually, Trump v. Biden, and the ins and outs of that. I personally have no problem with it, although others have said they do. Also, Budweiser's latest epic fail. We'll be talking about that. Oh, boy. Not for the reasons that a lot of people, though, are opining on the subject. The ad itself, as I explained this morning, is not actually a problem at all. It's the timing, and it's the context of putting out this particular ad. Rather sad, they won't be able to sell as much piss beer, poisoning people slowly, very slowly if it happens to be a light beer, by the way. We've got other shit that we're going to talk about as well. I see there are some super chats, though. James Flowers, hubris, the word for the Titan sub. Mount Everest, too blasé. Exactly. Pol Pan sent a bunch of emojis. I think it's probably related to the OceanGate implosion, but I'm not 100% sure. Thank you, Pol Pan. Ryan Adams, Ukraine is fully mobilizing now. Totally winning. It's normal for a state with less manpower to do so in such a situation. They're trying to capitalize upon the gains they have had and continue them. Really, I have a sneaking suspicion that the Ukraine-Russia thing is going to become a forever war. It's just going to become a money sink. And then, if it ever ends, it becomes another North Ireland or another Afghanistan or something like that. Alexandra Otroska. Have you noticed a significant difference between American and European food? I'm Polish, but I've heard American food tastes very different to ours. Yes, European food has less of the corn binders, because there's less corn, less of the soy, lecithin and so forth in it, and so it is better overall. I would say Dutch bread, because of the lack of, I believe, lecithin specifically in the bread, actually it doesn't stay as long. It's fresh. It's delicious, but it doesn't, you can't keep it for very long. You have to eat it fairly quickly or it gets moldy. I guess soy lecithin is a preservative. I remember it from Oregon Trail. If you got alkali poisoning, that was the proper thing to administer because for some reason it counteracts alkali poisoning. I remember this from when I was like 10 years old, by the way. Kilroy was here. My biltong from Anton's from Roanoke, Texas came yesterday. Delicious. 10 out of 10. Would buy again. Excellent. Yeah, I can't wait to get mine. I've stored up like a $400 biltong fund or something at this point, so it's gonna be time for some yum yum. The Great Scalzini. 2 cats. Blowfield. Eat your heart out. Yes, one of them is leaving. Oh no, both of them are leaving now. Thank you. Please don't fight each other. Just to be clear, it looks like they're having a showdown. It's the showdown at Kitty Corral. Why don't you just leave each other alone? Go eat. Go do something positive. Beagle Cake. Morning, chat. Have a good Friday, y'all. Sigil Stone 17. England raised interest rates by 0.5% and Turkey raised them 6.5%. The financial collapse is accelerating. Well, Turkey has had an inflation problem for how many years now? They didn't even need to wait for the COVID lockdowns in order to have an inflation issue. Nick Ray 47. What's the difference between a bad joke and a bad joke? The first letter. I think that you mean dad joke. I get the reference. Anyway, we'll go to the first news story. This is actually by a pro Desantis page. For some reason, they think that this is a winning issue for them. Governor Ron DeSantis, at the universities, they should be responsible for defaulted student loan debt. If you produce somebody that can't pay it back, that's on you. I don't want anyone to have to be deep in debt just to get a college degree. Now, the latter part, of course, I agree with. You shouldn't be deep in debt to get a basic education, associate's degree or something like that. It's not necessary. The culprit about why higher education is so expensive in the United States is government. The government has come in, given limitless amounts of grants. Also, there are endowments by other groups to universities, to colleges, and they squander it. They fritter it away on a sports stadium, a new student civic center or something like that, on upgrading dorms and so forth. So it has nothing to do with the actual classes. It has to do with the overall experience of living in college, sort of like a mini commune or something like that. It has to do with filler courses, women's studies, 201 and stuff like that, things that don't really make you money in the real world. If he were to have elaborated on that and said, look, if colleges and universities are offering all of this bullshit filler that isn't going to get a student a job, ultimately at some point you're responsible for, what happens. The students can't pay back their loans. I would definitely agree with him. I wouldn't agree with student loan debt forgiveness, but in spirit, the concept would be apt. He would be correct. That's not what he's saying, though. He's saying that students, even those that went into STEM, maybe they got poor grades or something, and they graduate, and clearly they're competing with people with higher grades. They're competing with people who just have more connections, whatever, should have their student loan debt should be the responsibility of the university or the college they went to. I disagree completely. You signed a promissory note, fucking pay the debt back. It's as simple as that. Here's my student loan debt relief guide. You signed a note. You signed a contract. You took out debt. You bet on yourself. You may have been ill aware, and I'm amenable to this as someone who still has student loan debt and certainly suffered under poverty for most of my life. I'm amenable to the concept that many people were misled. My generation, especially core millennials, especially above all others, were misled into believing that if we went and got a college education, even if we were a B student, so we didn't need to be top of the class, we just needed to do fairly well and get a reasonable degree, and we would have a job right out of college that would pay the bills, that would get us a dignified lifestyle. We were lied to. We were lied to by a bunch of boomers and people from the so-called greatest generation. I understand that, but you still signed a contract. You can dicker all day over whether an 18-year-old should be able to sign that sort of contract. That's a separate debate. That's not what DeSantis is referring to. He's effectively saying, hey, all of these educational institutions, and it's not entirely clear whether he limits that just to public ones. It could involve private ones too. If they create a delinquent student, so somebody who is a straight F student, for the most part, they barely graduate or something, 2.0 GPA, that it's somehow the school's fault if they can't pay back their debt. That's fucking bullshit. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. I've paid back several tens of thousands of dollars on my student loan debt, despite every detriment in the world, literally everything stacked against me. I have a limited amount left that's easily paid for. I can handle that, no problem. I realized that in my situation, I happened to rise up partially through my own effort, partially through who I was and my skills at the time, through chance and circumstance, and the promotion of others. Sargon's due diligence video definitely helped me when it came to book sales, for example. But other people are capable of it too. The mythology that schools are singularly responsible is bullshit. You signed a promissory note, you signed a contract, you'll have to pay your debt. There should be no student loan debt relief. If anything, the one reform that we should institute is something that in the Obama era was rescinded, which is bankruptcy for student loans. If a student is going to be incapable of repaying their student loan debt, they've gone 20 years, the interest keeps mounting, they make minimum payments, but they're never going to be able to pay it back. It's quite clear. Yes, bankruptcy makes sense. And bankruptcy, by the way, is not like a magical way out for students. Oh my God, they're skeeving on their responsibilities. Bankruptcy is not something that the average person would desire to go through. It comes with its own conditions and terms, etc. But that would be something that has been used before for that kind of debt anyway. You can restore that and call it a day. There's no reason to forgive, aka expect people who didn't go to college to pay off college students' tuition debt. That doesn't make sense. Holding the schools responsible beyond going after the endowments also doesn't make sense. Yes, if a school has $100 million in endowments, I'm sure that they can use some of those funds to lighten the load on people that graduated from their school in hopes that their lot will improve over time. But going directly after them and holding them directly responsible for what students in some cases brought upon themselves is fucking horseshit. Yes, there are plenty of people out there who are very, very talented. They're very intelligent. They're good students. They did their job. They studied hard. They memorized what they needed. They learned their skills, etc., etc. They didn't goof off. They didn't go partying every weekend. They studied hard, who have fallen through the cracks, and I feel nothing but sympathy for them. There are also, and this is a nuance that's lost, there are people that just go to college to have the piece of paper and think it's all good, and they did spend the whole time smoking weed. That really is a thing. It may not be very common, but it does happen. Why should that student not face the repercussions of their stupid actions? Why should society have to bail them out? That's effectively what Desantis is saying here. Ron DeSantis is effectively going far left on the goddamn issue. And it makes no sense whatsoever. There are plenty of ways we can reform the student loan system without pretending that schools are responsible for the aptitude of their students in all cases. In some, yeah, absolutely. That's why you try to choose a good school. If you're going for liberal arts, you're learning math and English and so forth, and you've fallen through the cracks, I would show largesse to those people. But if you decided to go to the school and get a women's studies degree, and now you're wondering why you can't find a job, well, no shit. I wonder why that could possibly fucking be. The Commander 248. Hamtramck has been hilarious. The area is terrible. No driveways, narrow streets. It's a pain for me to deliver packages there, but they don't have pride flags or BLM signs. They're traditional, based. Dems are losing them. I wouldn't say Islam is traditional in the sense of the United States, although a lot of people pretend that because Thomas Jefferson read the Quran once that that's the case. Smoo Johnson, I need Lauren to message me at her earliest convenience. No need to speak about it. So yeah, I would say, if you took out a bunch of student loan debt, well, pay it back. In some cases you made a bad decision. In some cases you were effectively coerced by society. I understand that. I was told by all my teachers, okay, look, you're a good student. You need to go to college and shit like that. I should have gone to a state college, though. I should have gone to Castleton from the get-go. I'd have no debt at this point and would have had little debt to begin with. Instead, I ended up going to massively overpriced UVM. I probably shouldn't have done that. It doesn't matter if you're smart and can pass all your courses, and I did. Doesn't matter. I probably should. I didn't fit in there. It wasn't exactly my cup of tea. There's some good things about it. You can get good weed, some good 20 a gram fucking hydro. It's probably 25 a gram now with Biden inflation. I feel sorry for the UVM kids. They can't even afford to get high anymore. Brother Shogo, do you feel sorry for those submariners or just rich people doing stupid stuff? CEO kind of deserved it for diversity hires and cutting corners. I feel sorry for anyone that dies a sudden, inexplicable death. It doesn't really matter who they are. Darth Dawn, do we need to bring back the Bill of Attainder? Bill of Attainder, I'm not exactly sure what that is, actually. Maybe, maybe not. You can describe it for me. The Great Scalzini, do you agree with Razor in that it shouldn't be get woke, go broke, but rather get broke, go woke? I've heard him say the latter in the past, though. I agree in some circumstances. In some circumstances, you know, your company has problems, so you ultra wokeify it, and then you get the ESG investment. Yes, despite having no merit for why you should get it. That does happen. Budweiser will be grabbing it up any day. Hey, Tarl, do you want to make Rutland a dry county to get rid of filthy beer and pagan mead? I don't believe in dry countyism. I don't believe in prohibitionism. It doesn't work, number one. It's foolish, number two, and unconstitutional, number three. People should be able to drink themselves to death if they want to. We let them smoke themselves to death. They're actively pushing to let them use other drugs to kill themselves. So in some places, they're allowed to literally do so and get a doctor to sign a note saying, yes, you can go into the nitrous oxide chamber. Next news story, Trump versus Biden 2, the rematch voters don't want. This is an opinion piece, by the way, from Roll Call. For a majority of voters, the question isn't who to choose, it's how. Who gives a goddamn? Here's one thing that I've been seeing. The idea that it is beyond the pale to have a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, which is pretty likely to happen. Donald Trump is now more than 30 points ahead in the GOP field, which is a packed field, which complicates things for anyone else who would try to rise up. I just don't see the votes there. The writing is on the wall unless Trump keels or is officially disqualified. He's the GOP nominee. Joe Biden is about the same amount or a little bit more ahead in a non-packed field at the moment. There's only two other contenders. RFK Jr. can be interesting, but he's not a threat to Biden. Marianne Williamson can be eclectic and interesting, but she's not a threat to Joe Biden either. He will be renominated by the Democratic Party. They're not going to hold debates. They're probably not even going to hold primaries in a lot of the states. The same, by the way, holds true for Trump. One of his ingrained advantages is that states in which he has a lot of support will feel pressure to simply allocate their delegates to him. It doesn't matter if it's only a half a dozen states. That is one hell of a goddamn advantage going into the election. It will probably be, therefore, Trump v. Biden 2.0. Now, this article and other articles pretend that that's not a good thing. They pretend that, oh, the public is really, really angry at this. That's very, very funny because all I see are largely liberals lining up behind Biden. They may be holding their nose a bit, but they're not massively peeved about it. They're just not excited about it. With Donald Trump, I see a core fan base, which is almost half the party, very excited to vote for him. And again, a bunch of people who reluctantly will get behind whoever the GOP nominee is. That doesn't mean that the independent voting base is excited, but when are they? An independent voter typically is not excited anyway. Why do you think they're an independent? I'm excited to vote for Donald Trump as an independent voter, by the way, but I'm an outlier. I like him not because of the party. I don't give a fuck about the Republican Party. They're a bunch of fucking losers by and large. If it were Rand Paul, by the way, I'd be excited too. I'm excited because I know how he would govern, and the idea of literally lobbing a hand grenade into the lap of the establishment and really making them squirm and force them to either really show their ass, waking people up, or bend knee, therefore waking people up as well. I think that that's funny. I think that it's a good idea. Trump will almost certainly be the Republican nominee. Biden will almost certainly be the Dem nominee. And I'm not understanding why that would be a problem. If indeed, it would be more of a problem if someone with less support were to be the nominee of either of the main parties. Imagine Marianne Williamson versus Chris Christie. Well, 90% of voters would be pretty peeved because they don't support these people. Chris Christie has a snowflake's chance in hell of breaking 5 points in the aggregate. Marianne Williamson originally was close to 10. She's slumped to about the same level, 4 or 5 points at this point. If you were to jury rig them in, yeah, you might have some fireworks. It's new people. There's something, they have something new to say maybe, but it wouldn't be the will of the people in either party or the voters at large. If anything, in such a situation, half the voting public would just fucking stay home. With Trump and with Biden, you have a lot of skin in the gamers. You have a lot of people who have strong feelings with regards to these candidates. I realize it verges in near on gerontocracy. I realize that Trump has baggage. He has his issues. Biden has, I argue, more issues, but they both have them. The fact that Trump wasn't a perfect president, or the fact that Joe Biden has been a bad president, although liberals would say the same that I say about Trump, he was an imperfect president, doesn't negate the fact that really the writing is on the wall. And it's likely to be Trump v. Biden 2.0. I relish the idea of a rematch. It doesn't really matter who wins in the end. If Donald Trump doesn't win, it'll be because of shenanigans at this point. I think looking at a combination of polling, the economy, in-party preference, a la the Dems regarding Biden, it's difficult to conceive of a case in which Trump could lose unless there was some sort of legal shenanigans. So I relish the chance to see the deep state show its ass once more. Yeah, he'll get 90 million votes. Most popular re-elected president in all of history, Joseph Biden. And a lot of people will actually believe that. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Thanks to everyone who has tried and appreciated our Biltong. We appreciate the feedback. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yes, you can get your Biltong from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. I will be headed down there at some point in the future. I'm also going to get Mexican burgers again because those things are delicious. You might have a heart attack eating it, but the taste is definitely on point. Aaron Nelson, petitioning the Navy to name that type of submersible the Schrodiner class. Oh, God. The Gal Faces. I want a Styx Hexenhammer 666 Fumo plushie, like the Tahoe ones. Also, what is your opinion about the Box Saga? I like the Box Saga. I've watched every video that they ever released. That was years and years ago. Linguistic Saga from, of course, Scandinavia. Eorbach was the one that popularized that. There were a bunch of others that dabbled in it too. And I'm thinking for those 80s aficionados, because it was a thing first in the mid-80s, is the Viking dude from Vice City, that is GTA Vice City, that old game from the 2000s, is that based on the Viking craze of Eorbach and some of these others that got involved with like sagas and stuff? Because I had a sneaking suspicion when I first familiarized myself with it as an 80s nut that is where they got it from. I'm pretty sure. Aerodynamic 11, voting Trump because we win no matter what. He wins, we have a chance to fix things. He loses, normies see how much the Uniparty sucks. Love my way. I completely agree. I'll be voting for him. Even if it's a write-in, I will vote for Donald Trump. The Commander 248, few movement pushed for libertarian, pushed RVW hurting our demographics. Broke the dating scene, pushed housing prices up, and college became a scam. Immigrants fixes our manpower issues. I self-improve to fix it. Self-improvement is important. By the way, I am writing a new book now. It's going to be called Animal, Human, and Superhuman, talking about ideas about self-improvement, civic constructs. It's going to be a rather convoluted and philosophical work, but I've already outlined it as of this afternoon. Shit, I did editing, second editing, video work, writing, formatting. I'm a goddamn workhorse. Ashley, Ron and the libs are missing the big picture. It's the fact that most of the graduates aren't that beneficial to the economy. Degrees are a money sink. In many cases, yeah, absolutely they are. Brother Shogo, can people even afford kids these days? Costs $500,000 just to raise one kid to 18. I want kids, but I'm hesitant of the financial cost. Any advice? Have a kid. As somebody who has a kid, you will enjoy it. Yeah, there are stressful times. Hopefully your kid is a good sleeper like ours is, our daughter. That might not be the case, but it is rewarding enough to do it. Just fucking do it. Put your pee-pee in the vagina, come inside the vagina, all gushy and wet, and have fun doing that, and just bang until you have a kid. Just hope you don't get like triplets or something. That would be a little bit much. The Commander 248, Trump was a Democrat, then an independent. He's not a Republican in the traditional sense. True. The partisans don't realize that's why we love him, or they do realize and it terrifies them. Good. Be scared. Also agreed. Absolutely. He's basically like Reagan 83. That's effectively where his views are. Sigil Stone, the student loan system is another thing that can be fixed by wrenching it away from government, but lefties and normies are too stupid or decadent to realize that. Absolutely. The cost would be half as much for college admission and so forth if it weren't for all the bells and whistles that are provided by government money that in many cases is earmarked to help students pay the cost, but it's never used for that actual purpose. Forge and Anvil, on Monday night, we're going to discuss Mike Pence's faith and whether or not it's fake from a Christian perspective. I'm going to see if my guests agree with you, Sticks. Okay, Forge and Anvil on Monday night. Sounds like a good one. Maybe I'll tune in. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong time zone. I'll probably be comatose at that point. Next news story, we've got Budweiser with their latest cell phone, but for reasons that are different from many people's analysis. Many people are looking at this, and because their view of Budweiser has been tainted, they now see it as a woke company, et cetera, et cetera. So they're sort of microscopically analyzing this ad. Here's what I see from a more prosaic perspective. This ad in and of itself, which shows a bunch of people trying to have like a summertime, like a barbecue festival, and there's all sorts of shit going on, but everyone's happy as long as they cracked open a cold one. The ad itself is not the problem. The ad itself, if it were pre-Dylan Mulvaney, nobody would find this ad to be problematic. They may or may not like it. It may or may not affect them, but nobody would find it cringe or anything like that. It's a standard ad for a standard product for beer. That's not the problem. What I thought when I watched this ad is that if you had apologized for the Dylan Mulvaney shit and for dogpiling your own constituents to some degree, and or you had not done it in the first place, or if you had waited long enough to respond, if you hadn't issued a response, because all the responses were self-owning, if you hadn't dug yourself in deeper, or you had apologized and begged the forgiveness effectively of the people that actually drink your piss product, then this ad would not be poorly received. There's nothing wrong with the ad itself. The problem is that you haven't done any of those things. There has been no apology from Budweiser. They didn't stay absent long enough. They are simply retooling their ad campaign very conspicuously to try to... The problem is that people then compare the ad that you've just released to what you released when you made Dylan Mulvaney a brand manager. And so even though you've created an ad that has nothing to do with wokeness, this is not an ESG ad. This is, hey, there's a storm coming, crack open a Budweiser. The ground is hot, crack open a Budweiser and stand on top of the Budweiser cooler, et cetera, et cetera. Standard ad, a little bit of humor, just basically, hey, drink yourself to death. Well, that's basically what they've been doing for decades anyway. The problem is that because there was no apology, not enough time, and the incident happened in the first place, all people are doing effectively, look through the comments if you don't believe me, what people are mainly doing is saying, look, what a contrast with Budweiser a month ago. And so you can't escape from it. Again, these people need to fire their entire branding team at this point and completely overhaul what they're doing. They need to fire everyone involved with making ads, making brands, pitching the product to people. And I pointed out this morning, too, there's another thing that doesn't really make sense. Budweiser is universally known in much of the world. Where it has a presence, everyone knows what Budweiser is. There's Bud Light for sale here in the Netherlands. Everyone already knows that your company exists. The only thing you can do is maintain or manage or increase the brand, or you can harm the brand. Nobody needs an ad to know that Bud Light exists. So that's not the purpose of this outreach. This purpose is to make people feel positive about the thing that you are branding. But you haven't solved the underlying issue. You haven't solved the underlying issue that you decided to alienate about a quarter, maybe a third of your own fans by doing the woke thing very conspicuously. You then came out and made excuses instead of simply backtracking, saying, oh, we got this wrong, and we realized that you should have used self-deprecating humor. The jokes would write themselves. You could have easily done that. People would find it humorous. They'd say, okay, well, clearly they understand that people are pissed off, and then they'd buy your piss product again. At this point, it's so late in the game, a lot of people have created brand loyalty with some other piss beer. Unfortunately, all too few of them have done one of the two things that really would have made a difference. Start drinking microbrews because you can't put the fucking bottle down, or stop drinking beer. Because basically the only purpose of beer is it's a hot day and it's refreshing. Water does the same thing. There are all sorts of wonderful, look up recipes for different drinks from around the world. There are 10 trillion of them that you can try, all of which, for the most part, are better for you than drinking alcohol. Why don't you do that? Hell, fucking grab a wine cooler if you're really that into it. But if you're going to drink beer, you should be drinking a local or regional brew. You shouldn't be drinking Bud anyway. It's piss. It's not worth the money. It doesn't taste enough to be worth the amount of money that it costs. The same with every other. Samuel Adams is the worst, though. Holy goddamn Christ. How can people fucking drink that shit? I don't even fucking understand. I had it exactly once. It tasted all bitter and weird, and I don't fucking understand it. The only thing worse, I guess, is certain German beers. The German beers, for some reason, to me, when I did try them, they taste like gym sweat. It tastes like the smell of sweat, like sick sweat, like influenza sweat, like, you're feverish and you're laying in bed. It tastes sort of like the smell of that, like on your blankets. And it's really, really weird to me. And just think, millions of people drink that shit. I don't fucking understand it. Never will. So yeah, ESG, they've really gotten past it. The problem is that if you look at the replies, you'll find that others have not gotten past it. The Commander 248, Navy knew the sub was gone on Sunday. Distraction? They speculated that it was gone. The Coast Guard still investigated because they didn't know for sure. That is not actually a distraction. It does not appear in this case to be a conspiracy theory, which is one of the few times that I can actually say something like that, because normally it is a distraction. Miss Grimstock, hi Sticks, we got our biltong. My husband gives it a big thumbs up. Clank, excellent. Good to know. James Jones, when you say cell phone, I hear cell phone. Well, they do sound exactly the same when pronounced by a Vermonter. We do not pronounce our T's very well. Let's see here. Sigil Stone. I'd tell Budweiser to go shove it up their ass, but they'd probably like it. Yeah, you put some Mentos in there and, does it react like Diet Coke does with Mentos, or is it some other thing other than the carbonated water? That'd be funny. Beer enema. I'm sure. I better not mention it too much, or else a bunch of Zoomers will do that die, and then I'll get blamed for it. Sticks Hexenhammer, Zoomer slaughterer. Chris Christie intends to be the X Factor in 2024. Now, this is going to be funny. Chris Christie being taken seriously, and this is a real clear politics post. So this is not legacy media. RCP generally does a good job. But basically, it's weird. It's almost like a fluff piece for Chris Christie. Have you seen his polls lately? Have you seen where I would think that his upper ceiling of support in a race that's packed, DeSantis basically has the TDS vote sewn up. Mike Pence has the rest of it. What's his ceiling at? 3 points? Maybe 4? Something like that? The problem with Chris Christie boils down to a few things. You were an advisor to Trump and supported him. So anti-MAGA does not like you because you helped Orange Man to get the nomination in 2020. So they're not going to support you by and large. You've alienated MAGA by going against Trump, both by running and by bad-mouthing him for the last couple of years. So you've alienated them. That is really about 85% of all of the GOP field. Everybody else who's taking up a line other than I'm Trump or hey, I'm Trump but electable, aka DeSantis, arguably Pence, is stuck fighting for the last 15 points. Even if everyone but Christie dropped out and endorsed him, shy of Trump and DeSantis, Chris Christie would still be in a distant third place. I doubt he would even crack double digits. The idea of him being the X factor in the election is completely ludicrous. The man weighs 300 pounds. He had single-digit support when he left as governor of New Jersey. Where's his coalition? I mean, he came out the other day in favor of kids being able to get gender transforming surgery as long as their parents said it was okay. Who in the GOP is going to support somebody with that kind of view, considering that's one of the mainline issues in this actual election cycle? Education and children's rights are one of the forefront issues. I would say it goes economy, the border, arguably, Ukraine and foreign policy in general, and then those social issues. So basically, LGBTQ plus MAP, IOU 123, education, parents' rights, students' rights, the rights of schools and so forth, book burnings and book bannings attendant to that, and similar issues. Guns would be also on that same tier. If Chris Christie doesn't have anything unique to peddle on any of these issues other than the one in which he's going against the vast bulk of his own party, how the fuck are you going to be the X factor in the campaign? Mike Pence is more likely to play spoiler than Chris Christie. Mike Pence at least has a pulse. To his credit, after he announced, he did gain support, mostly at Desantis' expense, by the way. I would argue that the Desantis fans don't at this point know what the fuck they are doing or talking about. Can anyone please tell me, and I mean this seriously, you can tell me in chat, can you name one thing positive about Chris Christie? Because I'm drawing a blank. Hypocrite, loser, screwed both MAGA and non-MAGA in the back, so he backstabbed both poles of his party at different times. He's taking up issues that are arguably far left on social issues. He's not exactly an economic conservative of any kind. He doesn't have a libertarian-leaning bone in his body. He's a drug warrior and everything else. Why the fuck would anyone support him? And by the way, second to that, how does he actually have even a point of support? There are a few candidates like Hutchinson that aren't even at 1%. How does Chris Christie get to 1.6 or something like that? I'm going to check this. I'm going to fact check this live. What the fuck is Chris Christie polling at? I want to see this live. And somebody can tell me, can you think of a single redeeming quality to Chris Christie? Because really, I can't. What's Christie at? Christie's at 2.3. How do you get to 2.3 when you have literally no good ideas whatsoever? He's verging in on Nikki Haley territory. Also somebody that, you would never support if you were not infected with rabies and your mind's slowly melting. Trump's at 52.2, my dude. He's already above the threshold for victory by a significant margin. In a packed field like this, he needs 40 in order to run away with it. All he has to do is secure 3 of the first 4 states, and there is nothing that can stop Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if they indict him. It doesn't matter if they put him in house arrest at the Mar-a-Lago. It literally wouldn't even matter if they put him in a jail cell. And by the way, excusing such behavior would be damn difficult if he becomes the nominee. It'd be impossible to sell the public. The fly is once again trying to get laid on my webcam. This has been happening literally all day. Yeah, okay, I said, okay, there's one good thing about Chris Christie. He can withstand an atomic attack because of his vast bulk. Okay, we'll give him that one. He's so obese, he probably doesn't die when the nukes fall, and so the president remains intact after the Russians have leveled D.C. because he's just too fat to die. Radiation does not affect him. He's got like 5 inches of blubber on him to absorb the impact of the gamma rays, and that's probably enough. It might be, and by the way, he might be thin afterwards. All the gamma rays will burn off that fat. It'll just be like dripping out of his pores for several days. And so basically, McDonald's, he'll be in demand there. Not for eating, but they'll be draining all that fat off, scraping it off of his body and cooking the fries in it, post-apocalyptic mode. Next news story. I know that's a bit of a rant, but it's a funny one. Greta Thunberg's beginning of the end of the world prediction was for today, June 21st. Of course, that was a couple of days ago. I was going to throw it into the live stream, but there were other things that I had to cover that were simply more meaningful. I would like to point something out with Greta Thunberg. Her views are stupid. They're asinine. She's a NIMBYist. She's a rich bitch that has a rich family, and she travels first class and uses a lot of fossil fuel to go around to speaking engagements, etc. She's a hypocrite. That being said, she's also very young, and very young people sometimes are impressionable, make mistakes, and make a fucking fool of themselves. When I was Greta Thunberg's age, I was voting for Obama. So I know what it's like. I'm not going to be a fuddy-duddy. I've got a video rigged up actually on that topic to talk about in the future. Leave the youth alone. They're allowed to make mistakes. Yes, they can be impressionable and fucking stupid. You got to understand who taught them, though. They didn't teach themselves. I think they were taught by people older than they were. Some of them see through it eventually. Others don't. We'll see where Greta Thunberg goes. I'm waiting eagerly 5 years from now to see Greta Thunberg on a Gun Owners of America podcast or something like that, and she's like jacked and strapped with body armor and talking about how much she loves her AR-15. It is possible that such a thing would happen. We have seen reversals like that before. I'm an example of that. I voted in 2008 because of the Iraq war being such fucking bullshit, because I hated fucking W so much. I was rope-a-doped into believing I was a liberal and voted for Obama. By 2012, of course, that illusion had worn off. Gitmo hadn't closed. We were still in Iraq. We were in Afghanistan. People were still dying, and that was the main reason I voted against the Republicans at the time. So I ended up writing in Ron Paul. Stranger things have happened, NIMBYism aside, from Greta Thunberg eventually seeing the light. So when I see people openly insulting her, it's not really helpful. This is a person barely in their 20s with, by the way, what is it? I don't know if she's autistic or what she has. And clearly, to some extent, was led around by her parents. Well, she's an adult now, but that doesn't mean that the indoctrination wears off. I would simply posit Greta Thunberg is an impressionable, stupid kid. And yes, 20, you still are basically a kid. Let's fucking face it. In some countries, you can't buy a beer yet. I know that that's bullshit, but it's the way that it is. She does have the capability, though, of being activistic for a good purpose. It's just you have to, try to convince her, hey, look, you're not planting trees. You're still using fossil fuel. You're still living in the McMansion. What are you doing for the world? Either there's disingenuousness there or there's genuine mistaken disbelief there. I would like to believe generally for people that it's the latter. I don't like to assume that people are being malevolent, especially people who are very, very young. I would rather believe they're simply misled. And so as long as that chance remains there, then that should be pursued. As similar to like with David Hogg. David Hogg, I think, is exactly the same age as Thunberg. He does the anti-gun thing. In the last few months, he's started to talk about all the times he's gone to the gun range and all the guns his family owns. Doesn't it seem like there's a bit of a pivot there? Well, if Greta Thunberg goes out to the Black Forest or something like that and starts planting pine trees, yeah, that gets respect. That's actual environmentalism, by the way, as opposed to the Paris Climate Accords. And there are, by the way, forewarnings that may happen. Several times now, she's addressed crowds of rich people and effectively insulted them to their faces, and they're too fucking stupid to understand that she is, and they still do the golf clap, and they consider her precocious and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with the saga of Greta Thunberg. The NIMBYism is not appreciated, but people are capable of changing. And so, again, it's another reason not to be black pilled. Fuck, if somebody like me, who was an Obama liberal, can see the light, realize that's fucking horseshit, and then do what I'm doing now, yeah, it's possible. It's maybe an uphill battle. Put in some effort. Somebody convince Greta Thunberg to become a left libertarian or whatever, an anarcho-primitivist. She'll be living out in the woods. She'll be wearing skin. She'll look like a Wookiee or something like that, all unkempt and fucked up, and she'll just be digging in her turnip supply. She'll be like Ted Kaczynski minus the bombs or something. Wouldn't that be funny? Isn't it worth trying to create that reality? I think it is. Anyway, next news story. Drug arrests prove the city is a magnet for homelessness and crime, activist says. New San Francisco locals among those arrested in police crackdown on open-air drug markets. Yes, if you're going to San Francisco, expect to see heroin users on pretty much every street. I have never been to California, let alone San Francisco. And honestly, if I was physically in San Francisco, I'd probably be in physical danger because some Antifa might recognize me. So I'd probably have to get private fucking security in order to physically go there. Portland, I wouldn't even go there with private security, for example. But I talk to enough people because I do, obviously I have an audience. I get news tips from all over the place, including California. I've talked to enough people that live in or around San Francisco to understand I have not seen a single person proclaim that there aren't systemic problems in this particular city. Nobody claims there's not a drug addiction problem there. Nobody claims that there's not a homeless problem in San Francisco. If they did, I would say, well, countervailing evidence is pretty overwhelming. I think you might be being disingenuous to me. There is a problem in San Francisco. One of the problems, and it's becoming a problem for other, especially West Coast cities, is the lack of will to prosecute people. I don't believe in prosecuting someone for being a drug addict, for possessing drugs, etc. Something, though, should be set up to get it off of the street so that the problem does not multiply, does not amplify. If that requires some sort of dispensary and rehab system, that's perfectly fine. I don't think that drug addicts should go to jail. I think they should go to rehab anyway. That's fine. Wouldn't it be cheaper than dealing with the fallout, the inevitable property crime, etc. that San Francisco is dealing with? What about the amount that you have to pay people to clean up all the human waste that's on the ground? Los Angeles has the same problem. Los Angeles has always had a problem with crime and with homelessness for a very long time. But it has gotten demonstrably worse. And the reason why these things are getting worse is because of far left governance, mainly. City governance in general tends to be more corrupt than small town governance, although the reverse is portrayed in Hollywood. It's always the small town sheriff that has a stick up his ass about some resident or wants to rape one of the local women. It's never the police chief of New York City. No. He really believes in his job. It's just a few bad apples are in the barrel and he cleans them out, God damn it. If it's a top-down power issue, it's always portrayed as rural or small-town America that's corrupt. And suburbia is portrayed as frenetic, like just mentally imbalanced. The big cities, the people in charge really care. It's just that there are a few evildoers out there that we've got to get rid of. Have you noticed, by the way, that constant trope in movies about crime? Because Pepperidge Farm is fucking noticed long ago. San Francisco is a hellhole. You're going to pay $5,000 a month or so in rent for what we would conceive of as a reasonable apartment, only to go outside, you find that there's a homeless bum in the alley on one side. Several people are fucking on the other side. One of them's a hooker. The other one is the John. And then there's several people that are sleeping on your 2-foot wide front lawn, so to speak. And they're on heroin or something like that. That's San Francisco. That's the reality there, unless you're in a gated community or in a penthouse. Again, unless you're a multimillionaire or something like that. Can you imagine? I wouldn't want to live there. For that price, I mean, I wouldn't pay $500 a month to live in San Francisco, even in a reasonably upscale place, just because of the risk of having to even go outside. I guess if you save that much money, you get an Amazon drone to deliver your groceries to your 10th floor window or something. Okay, that might work. I'm kind of sociophobic anyway, so I don't need to go outside. That sounds okay, as long as I have a little deck where I can have some tomato plants. But shy of that, you couldn't pay me enough to move to San Francisco. Have you looked at the prices there? You'd be better off. I mean, for the same price, you could pretty much move to Martha's Vineyard and rent a place there. Rent your 3-bedroom beach bungalow for the same price. They are getting a 1-bedroom, relatively standard, smaller end apartment in San Francisco. You've got people that are living 4 people to a micro apartment. Again, single bedroom. They're all bunking up just to make ends meet. Where's the fun in that? All right, you make a lot of money at your job, but you're spending it all. By the way, how does that even make fiscal sense? I don't even understand. You're not saving up for the future. You won't be young forever. Just to be clear, eventually you'll be old like me. You think I want to live with 4 roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment? I don't think that'd work. I don't even like it when the cat's in bed on my legs. Well, I mean, when it's cold weather. The problem, the cat will always crawl in when it's hot, humid weather and shed all over me and poke at me and meow at me. In winter, she says, fuck you. Go ahead, die of cold. Spike 11117. Christie has the fat positive body vote. Yeah, I guess. He's got a coalition of the obese and willing. Soulstore 9000. A cursory glance at Thunberg's existence shows she's a manufactured puppet. Everything from her initial protests were crafted and engineered. Yes, but people can change. I guess some people would say she needs to find Jesus or some bullshit like that. James Jones, Chicago is the 2nd city. San Francisco is the number 2 city. Yeah. Imagine you take all that poop. Why doesn't Antifa scoop up all the human poop, and compost it and make another Chaz garden in San Francisco? This food was grown on human shit. Fucking eat it, you bigot. Big boy, local government is the purest form of government. Local policing is the most responsive and effective type of law enforcement. Yeah, a better law enforcement is own a gun. Good luck doing that in San Francisco. Let's see. Trip Boom sticks on fire every fucking day. Swamp Donkey 69420. We should pay off part of student loans. Many of the people were lied to by everyone. Besides, we give billions to Ukraine and Israel, so why not pay off degrees? Only STEM and financial accounting. No, I disagree with that completely. Pay back the fucking loan yourself. I agree they should be able to go through bankruptcy. Everyone else, deal with the debt that you have incurred willingly. Sigil Stone, remember in RoboCop how the mega corporation bought the police that encouraged crime to drive down property values so they could buy up the city at low cost? Why am I bringing this up? No reason. Yeah, no reason at all. Swamp Donkey. Also, states shouldn't fund BS degrees at the state level. Withhold state funds until they get rid of the BS degrees like women's studies, African, Jewish, gay studies, feminist theory, etc. I agree with that. If you want to offer that as a basic elective, that's fine, but it shouldn't be part of a degree study. OMG puppies. At 13,000 feet depth, the pressure is 400 atmospheres. The air in a 22-foot sub would be compressed to 3.5 cubic feet. The pressure volume energy of the explosion equivalent to 400 kilograms of TNT. Good on you for learning much more math than I did. And then the last news story. By the way, please send no more super chats. We're running up on the hour, and I've got to cook nice fried fish tonight. Oh my God, am I so fucking excited. I make a really good fucking fried fish, by the way. Yes, I make my own batter. Yes, it is nice and herby. Yes, it is flaky and delicious on the inside, crisp on the outside. I'm just looking forward to that and Brussels sprouts and Liz's rice and shit, so I can barely even focus. But this one has to be pointed out. Jeb Bush made a tweet, and Jeb Bush really should be prevented from using Twitter because he cell phones even more than George W. does. Here's what he said. Rampant marijuana use will be a mental health disaster given the much higher potency in the past few years. Soon, there will be complaints about why we didn't know. We do know, and we need to be much more vigilant. This is in response to Desantis actually doing something good, which was the concept of decriminalization. I support him on that. So that's one up for DeSantis. I can't vote for him or support him, but at least he's not a drug warrior like the fucking Bush family. To be clear, marijuana does not cause schizophrenia. Marijuana has not massively increased in potency in the last few years. There has been an increase in the amount of THC in weed over the years. It's called smoke a couple of puffs of it and not dab a gigantic fucking shit rail through a water pipe of pure THC or something like that. If you're just smoking a couple of puffs of marijuana, you're going to get high. But you're probably not going to end up in psychosis. You might green out, you get the munchies, you might flip out and think that you're in danger or something like that. Unless it's laced, really, real talk here, having used marijuana of various types, all the way from the really, really shitty street weed that has a bunch of stem and seeds in it, all the way up to the top hippie trippy hydro, total my favorite was White Widow. I got White Widow once, quite a bit of it, in exchange for some pills. That was back in the day. We won't talk about that anymore, even though the statute of limitations is worn off about a decade ago. I got a bunch of really great top quality weed when I was at UVM. It was expensive, but it was really high quality. And I smoked it. And I laughed uproariously listening to grindcore or black metal. Yes, Mbila Lugugal is one of the funniest things in the world when you're high. Or I'd watch funny movies, Pineapple Express or something, comedy usually. Young Frankenstein was my favorite. I smoked a lot of weed. I know plenty of people who currently smoke weed. None of them are psychotic. The fact is that the link between marijuana and schizophrenia specifically, or link between marijuana and psychosis, is here. Schizophrenics, in my opinion, are correlated with weed usage because people who have latent schizophrenic tendencies have a psychological abnormality that even in its non-full-blown form manifests itself, and they are more likely to try to self-medicate. There is also a strong correlation between schizophrenia and smoking tobacco. Well, what's the difference here? It's an attempt at self-medication to modulate the system. It doesn't have to be full-blown schizophrenia, by the way. You don't have to have those symptoms. You just have to have a latent tendency genetically or biologically. We're not 100% sure in all cases how it functions. That's the connection. With psychosis, yes, it is possible to go into psychosis using drugs. I went into psychosis when I used Spice, JWH018. I freebased the powder, probably smoked 50 or 60 hits in one go accidentally, and it was a big problem. Little more powerful than weed, also an agonist of different receptors in some cases. Anyway, that's possible. If a person smokes a couple of puffs of weed and they're not, it's like, hey, it's my first time, man. I think that I'll smoke this whole ounce. That's a good idea because I've never used it before. If a person is not being particularly irresponsible with this substance, they are generally not going to have a problem. It's been legal here in the Netherlands for fucking ever. I smell weed sometimes when I go outside. There's one couple that's down the next street that has a wake and bake session every morning. They look like they're in their 50s. They're a hippie couple. The chick has red hair and always wears psychedelic clothes. And the dude looks exactly like the sort of person you would expect to be stoned at 50. He looks like he probably makes art for a living and drinks, kombucha all day. These people wake and bake. They're old, considerably older than me. They don't seem to have a problem. Totally legal. Magic mushrooms are legal in the Netherlands. I don't hear much in the way of having a problem about it, other than drunken British tourists. They come and they can't hold their Heineken, and then they flip out and they go crazy in the red light district. Other than that, there seems to be no problem. So Jeb Bush is wrong. Yes, weed has gotten somewhat more powerful over the last few decades. Not years, Jeb, decades. That doesn't matter. Okay, so you only have to take 2 hits now instead of 5 hits to get the same effect. What's the problem with that? That's sort of the point, Jeb. Like, he never tried marijuana. Of course he did. He's the one that used too many drugs. He addled his mind. And carries a turtle around with him. He puts hoodies on and tries to go skateboarding like Beto and crazy shit like that. He's the one that acts stoned. The stoners act more normal than him. Doc Holliday. Before I left California in 2015, I had to work in San Francisco. Occasionally, when they brought the water street sweepers in, the stench of urine and feces. Ugh. Michael Cricklow, imagine Greta hanging out with Tate in the future. Oh, Jesus. Anyways, I think I'll go offline. Oh, there's Sebastian Monroe. There's nothing wrong with THC or CBD. Helped me get off pills that were causing more problems than helping. Dare lied that I'd get it for free. Yeah, where are my free drugs? I was offered those for years, supposedly. As a 90s kid, I was told that people would give me pills and weed and coke and heroin and all these wonderful things for free just to get me hooked so that I'd buy more, because everyone expects that 10-year-old is going to be able to buy a steady supply of crack cocaine. The logic kind of fell through, as you will see. But I never got any. I got smoked out a couple times, usually in a reciprocal manner, and that's literally it. I had to pay for my mushrooms. I had to pay for my LSD. The fuck were these people at, all of these very generous stoners? It was very sad when I got to UVM, Drug Central, and I realized that the hippies weren't as hedonistic and freewheeling when it came to their psychotropics as I thought that they were. Yeah, I was lied to. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. I thank you to the roughly 4,000 people watching at peak. I will be back next week, of course. No weekend stream. That's about all. Peace out.